Richmond isn't the biggest city in Virginia. It's not the fastest growing, and it's definitely not the loudest. But right now, more and more people are choosing Richmond instead of places like Northern Virginia, Raleigh, or Charlotte. And the reason isn't what most people think. It's not just housing prices, and it's not just jobs. It's something about how everyday life actually works here. Because when people visit Richmond, something interesting usually happens. They slow down. Maybe they start the morning walking part of the Virginia Capitol Trail, grab lunch out in Short Pump, then spend the afternoon driving through areas like Midlothian or Ashland. And somewhere during the trip, they usually say the same thing I hear from relocation clients all the time. Why does this feel easier than where I live now? That question explains a lot about what's happening in Richmond right now, because thousands of people are quietly making the same decision. Once you see the reasons behind it, you'll know pretty quickly whether Richmond actually fits your life or whether it doesn't. And if you're researching cities in Virginia right now, or even thinking about moving to Richmond, this is the part most people don't see until they actually spend time here. If you're researching cities in Virginia right now, or even considering a move to Richmond, this is something worth understanding. I work with relocation buyers every week, and I see the same pattern over and over and over again. People arrive curious, sometimes skeptical. They're just here to explore. Maybe they're comparing Richmond to Northern Virginia or Raleigh. Maybe they're relocating for work. Maybe they've just heard the city mentioned a few times. But after a couple of days here, something shifts. They start noticing how manageable daily life feels. One client I worked with came down from Northern Virginia for a long weekend. We spent the day exploring different parts of the metro, Glen Allen, Midlothian, and even out towards Ashland. At one point, they stopped and said something I hear surprisingly often. This just feels easier. They couldn't fully explain it yet, but they could feel it. And that's usually the turning point, because many people come here expecting compromise. But after spending time in the region, they realize they're actually gaining something they didn't know they were missing. Because the first thing people usually notice when they arrive here isn't housing prices or job opportunities. It's how everyday life actually feels once they're here. A lot of people come to Richmond expecting a slower pace. What they don't expect is how much easier daily life starts to feel once they're here. There's a difference between a city being quiet and a city being functional. Richmond tends to land in that second category. I remember working with a relocation buyer who had been living in Dallas for years. Their schedule there was packed, long commute, constant traffic, always planning the next thing. When they came down to explore Richmond, they spent part of the afternoon walking around Deep Run Park. After about 10 minutes, they stopped and said something that stuck with me. This feels like a vacation, and we're just walking through a park. That moment happens a lot. Not because Richmond is some kind of resort town, but because everyday life here tends to feel lighter. During the day, the city moves at a pace where you can actually get things done without the entire day disappearing into logistics. You might run errands in Short Pump, stop somewhere for lunch, and still feel like you have a full afternoon left. Or you might spend time outside along trails like the Virginia Capitol Trail and still make it back home before dinner without feeling like the day was consumed by driving. Those small moments add up, and they start to change how people structure their weeks. Instead of saving everything for the weekend, people begin doing normal life things during the week, going for a walk, meeting friends for dinner, spending time outside. That's one of the quiet advantages of Richmond. It doesn't demand as much effort just to move through the day. And when a city works that way, people tend to feel like they've gained something valuable: time. And when the workday ends, the city shifts into a different gear. People meet friends for dinner, patios fill up, restaurants and areas like Scott's Addition get busy. It's lively, but rarely overwhelming. That balance between activity and manageability is one of the things that people start noticing almost immediately. What's happening with Richmond right now isn't flashy. It's not one of those cities constantly trending in headlines or social media lists. But if you talk to people moving here, a pattern starts to appear. Many of them are coming from places that are bigger, faster, and much more intense day to day. Cities like Washington, D.C., New York, or parts of Northern Virginia still offer incredible opportunities, but the lifestyle that comes with them can be demanding. Everything takes planning. Every errand takes time. Even something simple like meeting friends for dinner can require coordinating traffic, parking, and schedules. Over time, that constant level of effort can wear people down. Richmond offers a different rhythm, not necessarily slower in terms of opportunity, but less complicated in terms of daily life. One relocation client described it to me in a way that made a lot of sense. They said the biggest difference wasn't any single feature of the city, it was the absence of friction. Simple things just felt easier. Running errands didn't require half a day of planning. Meeting friends didn't feel like a logistical project. Even getting across the metro area felt manageable. That reduction in everyday friction changes how people experience a place. Instead of constantly navigating systems, traffic systems, transit systems, scheduling systems, people spend more time simply living their lives. And the migration data suggests that a lot of people are recognizing that difference. Since 2020, the Richmond region has added roughly 52,000 residents. What makes that number interesting is that it's happening during a period when Americans overall are moving less frequently than they have in decades. So the people who are moving right now tend to be doing it very intentionally. And in many cases, they're choosing Richmond because it offers a balance they weren't finding in larger metros. But once someone decides Richmond might actually fit their lifestyle, the next realization usually comes quickly. Richmond isn't just one type of place to live. Another thing that surprises many relocation buyers is how diverse the Richmond metro area actually is. From the outside, people sometimes think of Richmond as a single city, but when you start exploring the region, it becomes clear that it functions more like a collection of different communities connected by a shared metro. Two people can move here at the same time and end up living completely different lifestyles while still technically living in the same region. Someone living in Tuckahoe might have a daily routine that feels suburban and very close to the city. Someone living in Moseley might prioritize newer neighborhoods and quick access to major roadways or easy access to the Richmond Metro Zoo for the kiddos. And someone living in Powhatan County or Goochland County may prefer more space and a quieter setting. All of those options exist within the same metro. That flexibility is one of the reasons Richmond works for such a wide range of people. You don't have to choose between city life and suburban life. You can choose the version of the region that best fits how you want your day-to-day routine to work. That kind of flexibility tends to reduce some of the pressure people feel when relocating. Instead of trying to find one perfect neighborhood, buyers have multiple ways to make the region work for them. And that variety helps keep the housing market balanced as well. And once people start narrowing down where they might want to live in the region, the next question becomes practical. How does work actually fit into life here? For a lot of relocation buyers, that question is just as important as housing, because in many larger metros, careers quietly start taking over the entire structure of the day. Long commutes, unpredictable traffic, and packed schedules can leave very little room for anything else. Richmond tends to operate a little differently. The region has a diverse employment base that includes healthcare, finance, logistics, education, government, and advanced manufacturing. No single industry dominates the entire local economy. That kind of balance often creates a more stable job environment compared to cities that rely heavily on one major sector. But what many people notice first isn't the industry mix, it's the commute. Instead of structuring your entire schedule around traffic patterns, you suddenly have more flexibility in your day. You might finish work and still have time to stop by a park like Robius Landing Park or grab dinner somewhere nearby without feeling like the evening is already gone. Those kinds of everyday moments start to add up, and when work fits more comfortably into the rhythm of the day, people often feel like they've gained something that's hard to quantify. Time. When people begin seriously evaluating a move, the conversation almost always turns to cost of living, and Richmond tends to surprise people here too, not because it's dramatically cheap. Housing prices have increased in recent years, just like many other parts of the country. But because the overall financial equation still works for many households. The cost of living in the Richmond region is generally estimated to sit slightly below the national average. Home prices also tend to remain lower than many major East Coast metros. But what people often notice even more than housing prices are the smaller everyday expenses. Property taxes remain relatively moderate compared to many other regions. Parking isn't typically a major monthly expense, and basic errands, groceries, gas, dining out tend to feel more manageable than in higher cost cities. Instead of feeling like every decision is financially tight, buyers often feel like they have more flexibility, whether that means saving, traveling, or simply having more stability in their monthly budget. And once the financial picture starts to make sense, the final question people usually ask themselves becomes much more personal. Is Richmond actually the right fit for me? Every city fits certain lifestyles better than others. Richmond is no exception. One thing I've noticed working with relocation buyers is that Richmond tends to resonate with people who value balance, people who want access to a city, restaurants, events, outdoor spaces, professional opportunities, but also want everyday life to feel manageable. Buyers are very diverse across all different ages, demographics, backgrounds, and stages of life. Some are advancing their careers, some are looking for a new environment. Others are simply searching for a place where daily life feels sustainable long term. Richmond often appeals to people who don't necessarily need the biggest or busiest city, but who still want access to a vibrant metro region with a lot of options. At the same time, every place has trade-offs. Someone who thrives in extremely high energy environments with constant activity and very large metropolitan infrastructure may find Richmond feels quieter by comparison, and that's okay. The goal when relocating isn't to find the best city, it's to find the place that fits how you actually want your life to function. Richmond tends to work well for people who prioritize livability, people who want career opportunities without extreme commuting, people who want access to outdoor spaces without needing to plan an entire weekend around it, people who appreciate a metro region where you can adjust your lifestyle over time without leaving the area entirely. And once someone recognizes that alignment between their priorities and what the city offers, the decision often becomes more clearer. Richmond doesn't usually win people over by being louder than other cities. It wins because it fits everyday life surprisingly well. Shorter commutes, multiple lifestyle options across the metro, a job market that remains diverse and relatively stable, and a cost of living structure that still allows many households to build a sustainable lifestyle. Those factors may not sound flashy on paper, but when you combine them, they create something many people are actively searching for right now, a place where life feels manageable. That's why so many people who visit Richmond just to check it out end up taking a more closer look. And if Richmond is even a possibility for you, the most important decision usually isn't just whether to move here, it's where within the region you land, because each part of the metro offers a slightly different version of life here. That's where working with a local relocation expert can make the process a lot easier. I help people relocate to the Richmond area every week, helping them understand the region, compare different communities, and make decisions that still make sense long after the move is finished. If you're thinking about moving to Richmond, you can call, text, email, or grab a time on my calendar using the contact information in the description. And if you want to keep learning about the region, check out the next video in the Moving to Richmond, Virginia playlist, where I break down the neighborhoods people often think they want before moving, and the ones many end up loving after actually living here, because that's when Richmond really starts to make sense.